I sold my real estate portfolio for $45 million on a Tuesday afternoon. To celebrate, I invited my daughter Victoria and her husband Marcus Chen to a private yacht party in Miami. 3 hours into the party, I felt hands on my back, and I fell 15 feet into the dark Atlantic water. As the captain pulled me up onto his rescue boat, he whispered something that made my blood run cold. "Mr. Mitchell, your son-in-law drugged your champagne. He was waiting for you to pass out before pushing you overboard." I saw everything. I looked up at my yacht, at the string lights and the laughter, and I made a decision right there, treading water in the darkness. I was going to play dead. Before I tell you exactly what happened on that yacht and how I took down the people who tried to kill me, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. And hit that subscribe button if you believe that karma always finds a way. My name is Robert Mitchell. I'm 62 years old, and I've spent the last 35 years building a real estate empire in South Florida. I started with a single duplex in Fort Lauderdale that I bought with a loan I could barely afford. I fixed it up myself, nights and weekends, while working a day job as a property manager. I rented it out, saved every penny, and bought another, then another. By the time I was 40, I owned 12 rental properties. By 50, I had developed my first luxury condo building in Boca Raton. Last month, I sold it all. 12 luxury properties, 3 commercial buildings, and that original duplex that started everything. $45 million. Cash. I'm not a flashy man. I still drive a 10-year-old pickup truck. I still live in the same modest waterfront house I bought 20 years ago. My ex-wife Linda, she left me 5 years ago. Said I worked too much. Cared more about buildings than people. Maybe she was right. But she also took $3 million in the divorce and bought herself a condo in Coral Gables with a boyfriend half her age. So I don't take her advice on relationships anymore. That left me with Victoria, my only child, my baby girl. She's 32 now, and I barely recognize her. She used to be so grounded, so smart. She got her business degree from University of Miami, graduated with honors. I was so proud. But then she met Marcus Chen at some influencer networking event, and everything changed. Marcus is 35. He's got the slicked back hair, the designer suits that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage used to be, the Rolex that catches the light at exactly the right angle. He told me he was a cryptocurrency trader, that he'd made millions in Bitcoin and Ethereum. He talked in buzzwords I didn't understand, throwing around terms like decentralized finance and blockchain validation with the confidence of a man who'd found the secret to easy money. I didn't trust him from day one. I'm a real estate man. I believe in tangible assets, in brick and mortar, in something you can see and touch. I've built my fortune on properties you can walk through, on land deeds you can hold in your hand. This crypto stuff, it smelled like smoke and mirrors to me. But Victoria was in love. Or at least, she was in love with the lifestyle. Suddenly, they were flying first class to Dubai, posting photos from rooftop restaurants in Singapore, wearing clothes with price tags that made my head spin. She quit her job at a marketing firm, said she was going to become a lifestyle influencer. Her Instagram was all champagne and sunsets and designer handbags. She had 80,000 followers watching her life of luxury. I tried to talk to her. "Honey," I said one afternoon when she stopped by my house, rare as that was becoming, "where is all this money coming from? Marcus says he's a trader, but I never see him actually work." She laughed, that new laugh that sounded practiced, performative. "Dad, you don't understand the new economy. Marcus works from his phone. He makes more in an hour than you used to make in a month. This is just how young, successful people live now." I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell her that real success doesn't come from phone apps and internet money. It comes from decades of hard work, from sacrificing weekends, from getting your hands dirty. But I didn't. I stayed quiet. I didn't want to lose her the way I'd lost her mother. Then, 6 months ago, things changed. Marcus started showing up at my office unannounced. He'd bring coffee, act all friendly, and then he'd start asking questions. "Robert, with the market shifting, have you thought about diversifying? Maybe moving some capital into crypto? Or, with the properties you're selling, you could probably 10x that in DeFi if you knew the right protocols." I brushed him off every time. But then the questions got stranger, more specific. That commercial building on Las Olas, the one you're selling to the hotel group. When does that deal close? And the luxury condos in Boca. Are you signing over the titles all at once, or in phases? I thought he was just making conversation, trying to sound smart. I had no idea he was planning something. The real estate sale closed on a Tuesday. $45 million wired into my account. Not bad for a kid who grew up in a trailer park in Homestead. That same afternoon I called Victoria. Baby, I want to celebrate. This is big. This is the culmination of my entire career. Let's do something special. She was thrilled. Oh, Dad, that's amazing. We should totally have a party. How about a yacht? I said. I'll rent one for the evening. You, me, Marcus, and a few close friends. Champagne, good food, sunset on the water. What do you think? There was a pause. Then her voice came back, bright and eager. That's perfect, Dad. Marcus will love that. He's been so stressed lately with work. This will be exactly what we need. Stressed. I should have heard the warning in that word. I rented a 50-foot yacht called the Serendipity from a marina in Miami Beach. Nothing too ostentatious, just big enough for 20 guests, with a full crew including Captain Hayes, a weathered man in his 50s who'd been sailing these waters for 30 years. I invited some old business associates, a few neighbors, my lawyer Frank Wright, who'd helped me close the deal, and of course, Victoria and Marcus. The party started at 6 p.m. The Miami sunset was perfect, the sky turning shades of orange and pink that looked like something out of a painting. The yacht glided out of the marina, the city skyline shrinking behind us. I stood on the upper deck, a glass of champagne in my hand, feeling the warm Atlantic breeze on my face. This was it. This was freedom. Victoria found me there about 30 minutes into the cruise. She hugged me tight, her arms around my neck like she used to do when she was little. I'm so proud of you, Daddy, she said, and for a moment, I believed her. Marcus appeared a second later, 2 fresh glasses of champagne in his hands. Robert, this is incredible, he said, handing me a glass. To the man who built an empire from nothing. To you. We clinked glasses. The bubbles sparkled in the fading sunlight. I took a sip, and something felt off. The taste was slightly bitter, almost medicinal. I frowned, looking down at the glass. Everything okay? Marcus asked, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. Yeah, I said slowly. Just, this champagne tastes a little strange. Did they open a new bottle? Oh, that's the Louis Roederer, he said smoothly. Top shelf stuff. It's supposed to have that complex finish. You'll get used to it. I nodded, but I didn't take another sip. Instead, I excused myself. I need to check in with the captain about our route, I said. Frank wanted to see the Star Island mansions before sunset. I walked down to the main deck, passing clusters of guests, laughing and taking photos. The yacht speakers were playing soft jazz. Everything looked perfect. But something in my gut was screaming that it wasn't. I found Captain Hayes on the bridge, checking the navigation. Captain, I said, stepping inside. Quick question. Did the catering company bring their own champagne, or did we provide it? He looked up, surprised. You provided it, sir. I watched your son-in-law's assistant bring 3 cases aboard this afternoon. He said you wanted to make sure we had the good stuff. My blood went cold. Marcus brought the champagne? Well, his assistant did. Young guy, maybe 25. Brought it right to the galley, said you'd arranged it special. I stood there, pieces clicking together in my mind. The strange questions about my business, the sudden interest in the sale, the bitter taste in the champagne, Marcus controlling the alcohol supply. Sir, are you all right? Captain Hayes asked. You look pale. I was about to answer when my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mr. Mitchell, this is David Song, Captain Hayes's nephew. I'm working the galley tonight. I need to talk to you in private. Urgent. I showed the text to Captain Hayes. He frowned. That's David. Good kid. Works on yachts to pay for marine biology school. What's this about? Let's find out, I said. We found David in the galley, supposedly restocking the ice. He was young, maybe 24, with nervous eyes. When he saw me and his uncle, he looked around to make sure no one else was nearby, then pulled us into the small storage room. Mr. Mitchell, he whispered, his hands shaking. I saw something. I didn't know if I should say anything, but I can't let this happen. What did you see? I asked, my heart pounding. Your son-in-law. About 20 minutes ago. He came down here when everyone was up on deck watching the sunset. He had a small plastic bag, the kind you use for pills. He crushed up whatever was inside and put it into one of the champagne bottles, the Louis Roederer. Then he marked the bottle with a small piece of tape on the bottom so he'd know which one it was. Captain Hayes grabbed his nephew's shoulder. David, this is serious. You're absolutely sure about what you saw? I swear on my life, Uncle Jim. He had gloves on, like the latex ones. He was being very careful, and then he threw the bag overboard. I watched him do it. I felt like the deck had disappeared beneath my feet. My own daughter's husband was trying to drug me. But why? To rob me? To make me sign something while I was incapacitated? Or something worse? Where's that bottle now? I asked. He took it upstairs. He's holding it himself, keeping it separate from the others. I think he's waiting for the right moment to give it to you specifically. I looked at Captain Hayes. His face was grim. Mr. Mitchell, we should call the Coast Guard. We should call the police. No, I said, my mind already working through the possibilities. Not yet. If we do that now, he'll deny everything. The drugs are already in the water. It's his word against a 24-year-old galley worker he'll say is lying for a tip. I need proof. I need to catch him in the act. That's dangerous, Captain Hayes warned. If whatever he put in that champagne is strong enough. I know, I said. That's why I need your help. We spent the next 5 minutes forming a plan. Captain Hayes would make an announcement that we were approaching Star Island and everyone should come to the upper deck for the best view. That would get Marcus away from his spiked champagne bottle. Meanwhile, David would switch it with an identical bottle from the galley, one that was clean. We'd keep the drugged bottle as evidence. It almost worked. I went back up to the party. Marcus found me within seconds, that same bottle in his hand. Robert, you disappeared. Here, I saved this for you. The good stuff, remember? He was already pouring it into a fresh glass. I watched the golden liquid splash against the crystal. This was it. This was the moment I was supposed to drink poison from my own son-in-law's hand. Captain Hayes's voice crackled over the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll all join me on the upper deck, we're approaching Star Island. You'll be able to see some of Miami's most spectacular mansions. Perfect. Everyone started moving upstairs, excited to see celebrity homes. Marcus hesitated, looking at me, then at the glass he'd just poured. Come on, I said, taking the glass. Let's go see those mansions. You coming? He smiled, but it was tight. Yeah, right behind you. I started climbing the stairs to the upper deck, the glass in my hand. I could feel Marcus behind me, close, too close. And then, as I reached the top step, I felt it. Hands on my back. A hard shove. I didn't have time to scream. 1 second I was on the yacht, the next I was flying through the air, the champagne glass tumbling away from my hand. I hit the water hard, the impact knocking the air from my lungs. The water was warmer than I expected, but darker, so much darker than it looked from the deck. I went under. The sound of the yacht's engine suddenly muffled and distant. My first thought was to surface, to call for help. But then something made me stop. If Marcus pushed me, he didn't want me to survive. If I surfaced now, screaming, he'd have to finish the job or face immediate consequences. Better to let him think it worked. I stayed under as long as I could, maybe 30 seconds, then surfaced quietly, gasping for air. The yacht was already 20 feet away, its white hull glowing in the last light of sunset. I could hear shouting, people screaming, "Man, overboard!" But I couldn't see Marcus. Where was he? A smaller boat engine roared to life. A spotlight swept across the water. Captain Hayes in the tender, already searching. He found me in seconds, the light hitting my face. "Mr. Mitchell!" he shouted, bringing the small boat alongside me. He reached down and hauled me up, my clothes heavy with seawater. As soon as I was in the boat, he cut the spotlight and spoke in a rapid whisper. "Don't make noise. Your son-in-law is watching from the yacht. He's standing at the rail. He looks nervous. Everyone else is panicking, but he's just watching, waiting." "Did anyone see him push me?" I asked, shivering, salt water dripping from my hair. "I don't know. It happened too fast. But Mr. Mitchell, I saw him walk away from the rail before you fell. He didn't call for help. He didn't react. He just walked away. That was all I needed to hear. Captain, I need you to do something for me. Something that's going to sound crazy. He looked at me, this weathered sailor who'd probably seen everything in his decades at sea. What do you need? I need you to tell them I'm dead. His eyes widened. What? Tell them you couldn't find me. Tell them the current must have taken me under. Tell them my body's gone. Then take me to shore, somewhere private, before we call the Coast Guard. I need time to figure out what's happening. Mr. Mitchell, this is insane. Your daughter will be devastated. My daughter just watched her husband push me off a boat and did nothing, I said, my voice hard. Either she's innocent and traumatized, or she's complicit. Either way, I need to know the truth before I surface. And the only way to know the truth is to let them think I'm gone. Captain Hayes stared at me for a long moment, the yacht's lights reflecting in his eyes. Then slowly, he nodded. All right, but we're doing this my way. We have to make it look real. I'm going to circle this area for 15 minutes, shouting your name, shining the light. Then I'm going to return to the yacht and tell them I couldn't find you. We'll make an official report to the Coast Guard. But you're going to hide in my cabin at the marina. And you're going to be very careful because if Marcus really tried to kill you, he's not going to stop now. Thank you, I said, my teeth chattering from cold and adrenaline. Thank you. For the next 15 minutes, I huddled in the bottom of the tender while Captain Hayes performed the search. He shouted my name into the darkness. He swept the spotlight back and forth across the dark water. He played the role of a desperate rescuer perfectly. Finally, he turned the tender back toward the yacht. As we approached, I could hear crying, a woman's voice, high and broken. Victoria. She was sobbing, her voice carrying across the water. Daddy! Daddy! Please! No! Part of me wanted to stand up right then, to let her know I was alive. But I stayed down, hidden under the tarp Captain Hayes had thrown over me. I had to know. The tender bumped against the yacht's platform. I heard Captain Hayes climb up the ladder, heard his heavy footsteps on the deck, then his voice, grave and exhausted. I'm sorry. I searched everywhere. The current here is strong. If he went under and breathed in water, he let the sentence hang. Victoria's scream was primal, animal. She was either the best actress I'd ever seen, or she genuinely believed I was dead. I couldn't tell which. Then another voice. Marcus. His tone was different, controlled. Captain, are you sure? Maybe he floated further out. We should call the Coast Guard, get a proper search team. I've already radioed them, Captain Hayes lied smoothly. They're sending boats. But sir, in water like this, at night, after 15 minutes, the odds aren't good. There was a pause. Then Marcus again, and this time I heard something in his voice. Not grief, not panic. Something else. Relief? Of course, you're right. We should get everyone back to shore. This is a tragedy. Poor Victoria, poor Robert. Poor Robert. I was supposedly dead in the Atlantic, and my son-in-law sounded like he was narrating a disappointing business deal. Captain Hayes returned to the tender. We didn't speak as he piloted it away from the yacht, away from the lights and the crying and the lies. He took me to a small private dock near Coconut Grove, away from the main marinas. His cabin was there, a tiny one-room structure that smelled like diesel and salt. He gave me dry clothes, made me coffee, and then sat across from me with a look that said everything. What now? He asked. I pulled out my phone. It was in a waterproof case, thank God, still working. I had recordings to make, evidence to gather, and a funeral to attend. My own. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a ghost in my own city. Captain Hayes let me stay in his cabin. His nephew David brought me food, newspapers, and most importantly, information. The official story was that I had fallen overboard during the yacht party, possibly intoxicated, possibly suffering a heart attack. My body had not been recovered. A memorial service was held at a church in Coral Gables. 200 people attended. David recorded it for me on his phone. I watched it alone in that tiny cabin. My daughter stood at the front, draped in black, her face hidden behind dark sunglasses. She read a eulogy she'd clearly written herself, her voice breaking every few words. My father was the strongest man I ever knew. He built everything from nothing. He taught me that hard work and integrity were the only things that mattered. I'll never stop missing him. It was beautiful. It was heartbreaking. And I still couldn't tell if it was real. Marcus stood beside her, his arm around her shoulders, supporting her when she swayed. He wore an expensive black suit. He looked devastated. He looked like the perfect grieving son-in-law. He gave a short speech about how I'd welcomed him into the family, how I'd taught him what it meant to be a man of principle. He actually choked up, or pretended to. But here's what David's camera also caught. After the service, in the parking lot, Marcus on his phone. The recording wasn't perfect, but David had gotten close enough with a directional microphone. "It's done," Marcus said into the phone. "Yeah, the old man's gone. No body, but no one's asking questions. Everyone thinks it was an accident." A pause. Then, I know. 2 weeks, you said. I'll have it. I'll have all of it. The house, the accounts, everything. Victoria's the sole beneficiary. We'll transfer it clean." Another pause. "Don't threaten me. I said I'll have your money. 3 million by the end of the month, just like we agreed." 3 million. He owed someone $3 million. That's when David did the real detective work. He was a smart kid, studying marine biology, but apparently he'd also taken some computer science classes. He got into Marcus's social media, traced his crypto accounts. What he found was a disaster. Marcus Chen wasn't a successful crypto trader. He was a fraud. He'd been running something called a pump and dump scheme, getting people to invest in obscure cryptocurrencies, then selling his own holdings when the price spiked, leaving his investors with worthless digital coins. He'd made money for a while, then he'd gotten greedy. He'd taken $3 million from the wrong people with connections to organized crime. The money was supposed to be invested in a guaranteed cryptocurrency opportunity. Instead, Marcus had lost it gambling on high-risk coins that crashed. Now he owed the Miami Mafia $3 million, and they'd given him a deadline, 1 month, or he'd disappear into the Everglades. His plan had been simple: marry the rich girl, wait for the rich father to sell his assets, kill the rich father, inherit everything, pay off the debt, run. Victoria was either a victim or an accomplice. I had to find out which. David had also recovered that champagne bottle. Captain Hayes had taken it before the Coast Guard arrived at the yacht, claiming he needed to secure all evidence. He'd given it to me. I'd taken it to a private lab in Hialeah, paid cash, no questions asked. The results came back in 3 days. Rohypnol, a massive dose, enough to knock someone unconscious within minutes. Enough to make someone drowsy, disoriented, easy to push overboard without a struggle. If I'd drunk that glass, I would have passed out on deck. Marcus would have carried me to the rail, acting concerned, and then just let me fall. An accident. A tragic, drunk accident. I sat in Captain Hayes's cabin reading that lab report, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Pure, cold rage. I called my lawyer, Frank Wright, from a burner phone. "Frank, it's Robert." There was a long silence. Then, "Jesus Christ. Robert? We had your memorial service. You're dead. I'm very much alive, and I need you to meet me somewhere private. There are some things I need to tell you about my son-in-law." We met at a private airport hangar in Opelika. Frank came alone, as I'd asked. When he saw me, still in Captain Hayes's borrowed clothes, unshaven, looking like I'd been through hell, he actually staggered. "What happened?" he asked. I told him everything. The drugged champagne, the push, the recording of Marcus on the phone, the $3 million debt, the lab results from the Rohypnol, all of it. Frank listened, his face getting darker with each detail. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, "Robert, this is attempted murder. Conspiracy, fraud. We need to go to the police right now." "Not yet," I said. "I need one more thing. I need to know if Victoria was part of this." "How are you going to find out?" "I'm going to make Marcus think he's won. And then I'm going to watch what he does next." 3 days later, Marcus and Victoria met with a probate lawyer to begin processing my estate. There was a problem, though. No body meant no death certificate. Without a death certificate, the inheritance process would take months, maybe years. Marcus couldn't wait that long. His deadline was approaching. That's when he made his move. David had been following him carefully at my request. Marcus went to a doctor's office in Coral Springs. Not a regular doctor. A woman named Dr. Linda Hayes. No relation to Captain Hayes. She was a physician who'd had her license suspended twice for writing fraudulent prescriptions. She was desperate for money. Marcus paid her $15,000 to write a death certificate. A fake one, claiming she'd examined my body when it washed ashore on a private beach in the Keys. Of course, there was no body. But she signed the paperwork. Official, legal-looking. Enough to fool a busy probate judge. With the death certificate, Marcus and Victoria could start accessing my accounts immediately, and that's exactly what they tried to do. Victoria went to my bank, my investment firm, my property managers. She had death certificate, a marriage certificate proving she was my daughter, and a lawyer ready to transfer everything into her name. But here's what Marcus didn't know. 3 weeks ago, before I even planned the yacht party, I'd changed my will. I'd had a strange feeling, a nagging worry I couldn't explain. I'd told Frank to add a clause. In the event of my unexpected or suspicious death, all assets would be frozen for 6 months and investigated by an independent auditor. It was paranoia, instinct. The same instinct that had built my fortune. When Victoria tried to access the accounts, she was denied. The banks told her there was a hold, pending investigation. She was confused. Marcus was furious. I heard all of this through David, who had managed to get a job as a paralegal at the probate lawyer's office. The kid was good. That night, David recorded another phone call. Marcus, screaming at someone. "What do you mean there's a hold? The old man is dead. I have the death certificate. I need that money now." A pause then. "I don't care about investigations. I need $3 million in 2 weeks or I'm dead. You hear me? Dead." Another voice, muffled. Then Marcus again. And this time his voice was desperate. Victoria doesn't know. She thinks this is all normal inheritance stuff. She has no idea about the debt. If she finds out, fine. Fine, I'll figure something out. Just give me more time. So Victoria was innocent. She'd been a pawn, just like me. Marcus had seduced her, used her, and was planning to drain her father's fortune to save his own skin. She didn't know about the drugs, the push, any of it. That changed everything. I called Frank Wright again. "I'm ready. Let's do this." "What's the plan?" he asked. "I'm coming back from the dead, and I'm bringing the FBI with me." The FBI was very interested in my story. Attempted murder, insurance fraud, organized crime connections, Dr. Linda Hayes' fake death certificate. They set up a sting operation. Marcus and Victoria had a meeting scheduled with a probate judge to finalize the inheritance transfer. The FBI would be there, waiting, but I wanted more. I wanted to see Marcus's face when he realized he'd failed. The morning of the probate hearing, I walked into the Dade County Courthouse, wearing my best suit. I'd shaved. I'd gotten a haircut. I looked like I'd just returned from a vacation, not from the dead. Frank Wright was beside me, carrying a briefcase full of evidence. Behind us, 3 FBI agents in plain clothes. We walked into courtroom 4C. Victoria and Marcus were already there, sitting at a long table with their probate lawyer. Victoria was wearing a simple black dress, her eyes red from weeks of crying. Marcus was in another expensive suit, but he looked haggard, desperate. His deadline was in 4 days. The judge, an older woman named Sandra Flores, was reviewing paperwork. The bailiff announced, "All rise." Everyone stood. That's when Marcus saw me. The color drained from his face. Not pale, not white, gray. The gray of a corpse. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. His eyes went so wide I could see the whites all the way around. He looked like he was seeing an actual ghost, which I suppose he was. Victoria turned to see what he was looking at. When she saw me, she screamed, a short, sharp sound of pure shock. Then she was running, stumbling, nearly falling as she rushed across the courtroom and threw her arms around me. "Daddy! Oh my God, Daddy! "You're alive! How? What happened? They said you drowned." They said. She was sobbing so hard she couldn't breathe. I held her tight, my little girl, and felt the weight of 2 weeks of grief pour out of her. She hadn't known. She wasn't part of it. She was a victim too. Marcus just stood there, frozen. His lawyer was confused, looking between me and the death certificate on the table. The judge was standing now, her mouth open in shock. "Mr. Mitchell," Judge Flores said, You're supposed to be deceased." "I'm very much alive, Your Honor," I said, "and I have a lot to tell you about how that death certificate came to exist." That's when the FBI agent stepped forward, badges out. "Marcus Chen, you're under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit fraud, and falsifying official documents." Marcus finally moved. He tried to run, actually turned and sprinted for the back door, but one of the agents was faster. He tackled Marcus before he'd made it 3 steps, slamming him to the floor. Marcus was screaming, thrashing, shouting, "He's not dead! He's not dead! This isn't real!" "Oh, I'm very real," I said, looking down at him as the agent cuffed his wrists behind his back. "And so are your debts. The FBI knows about the $3 million you owe. They know about the crypto schemes. They know about Dr. Hayes and the fake death certificate. They know everything." Marcus went limp. It was like someone had cut his strings. He just lay there on the courthouse floor, all the fight gone out of him. "Victoria," he said, his voice hollow. "Baby, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." She was still clinging to me, but she looked at him. Her face was a mask of confusion and horror. "Sorry for what? Marcus, what is he talking about? What, $3 million? That's when I showed her everything. The lab report on the Rohypnol. The recording of Marcus talking about the debt. Captain Hayes' testimony about the drugged champagne. David's testimony about seeing Marcus push me off the yacht. She listened to it all, standing there in the courtroom, her hand over her mouth. When I finished, she turned to look at Marcus, who was being hauled to his feet by the FBI agents. "You tried to kill my father," she whispered. "You tried to kill him for money." Marcus didn't deny it. He couldn't. He just looked at her with empty eyes. I had no choice. They were going to kill me. "So you decided to kill him instead?" Her voice was rising now, the shock transforming into fury. "My father? The man who welcomed you into our family? Who paid for our wedding? Who loaned you money when you said you needed it? You were going to drown him and take his life's work?" "I'm sorry," Marcus said again. It was all he could say. Victoria slapped him. Hard. The sound echoed in the silent courtroom. Then she turned to me, tears streaming down her face. "Daddy, I didn't know. I swear to God I didn't know any of this. I thought he loved me. I thought we were happy." I pulled her close. "I know, baby. I know." The FBI took Marcus away. He'd face trial for attempted murder, conspiracy, fraud, and a dozen other charges. The organized crime connections meant federal prison, probably 20 to 30 years. The $3 million debt? That was his problem now, not ours. Dr. Linda Hayes was arrested the same day. She'd lose her medical license permanently and face prison time for falsifying a death certificate. The probate case was dismissed. There was no death to process, no inheritance to transfer. I was alive. My fortune was still mine. But the hardest part was still ahead. Victoria and I sat in my living room that night, the waterfront house I'd bought 20 years ago. She looked so young, so broken. "I didn't see it," she said, staring at her hands. "I didn't see what he was," I thought. "I thought I'd found someone who loved me for me, not for your money. But that's all it ever was, wasn't it? He saw me as a dollar sign with a pretty face." "Yes," I said. There was no point lying. "I'm such an idiot." "No, you're human. You wanted to believe in love. There's nothing wrong with that." She looked up at me, her eyes red. "How do I come back from this, Dad? How do I trust anyone again?" I didn't have an easy answer, but I had an idea. You start by trusting yourself. You go back to school, finish that MBA you always talked about. You get a real job, not this influencer stuff. You build something of your own, something no one can take from you. And you do it without my money. She blinked. "What?" "I'm not cutting you off forever," I said. "But for now, you need to stand on your own. You need to remember who you were before Marcus, before the Instagram followers, before the designer handbags. You were smart, Victoria. You were driven. I want you to find that person again." She was quiet for a long time. Then, slowly, she nodded. Okay, I'll try." That was 14 months ago. Victoria moved into a small apartment in Kendall, started working at a marketing firm again. She deleted her Instagram. She stopped chasing the lifestyle and started building a life. We have dinner every Sunday now, just the two of us. She tells me about her work, about the clients she's winning, the campaigns she's creating. She's good at it. She always was. Last month, she came to me with a proposal, a business idea. She wanted to start a consulting firm helping small businesses with their digital presence. She'd saved $15,000. She needed a loan for the rest. "I'll pay you back," she said, "with interest. 5-year term. I've got a full business plan." I looked at that business plan, and it was solid, professional, well-researched. This was my daughter, the one I'd raised, the one Marcus had tried to bury under champagne dreams and fake luxury. "I don't want interest," I said, "but I want equity, 20%, and I want quarterly financial reports. This is an investment, not a gift." Her face lit up. Deal. Her company is called Authentic Strategies. It's been running for 3 months now. She has 7 clients and is already breaking even. She's building something real, something that's hers. As for Marcus, he's in federal prison. 32 years without parole. He tried to write to Victoria once, apologizing, begging for forgiveness. She sent the letter back unopened. She's done with him. I'm back in my waterfront house. I've started investing again. Smaller deals this time. I'm teaching Victoria everything I know about business, about real estate, about building wealth that lasts. She's a quick learner. She always was. Sometimes I stand on my back porch at sunset looking out at the Atlantic Ocean, and I think about that night, the hands on my back, the fall into darkness, the cold water closing over my head. I was supposed to die that night, to become a cautionary tale about trusting the wrong people. Instead, I became a ghost. And ghosts, as it turns out, can haunt the living in ways they never expect. If you learned something from this story, hit that like button. And if you believe that justice always finds a way, even when you have to come back from the dead to deliver it, drop a comment below. I'll see you in the next one.